Hey, what's going on? Nick Unsworth with Life on Fire TV. I'm here with my main man, Vic. Security. And why do we need security? Because we're about to show you behind the scenes episode of Life on Fire TV with my main man, Tai Lopez. This is from our Ignite Your Movement event where we had Vic holding it down doing security. So you're about to see Tai Lopez in action at our Ignite event. Check it out.
Hey, what's going on? Nick Unsworth here, and I'm a kick-ass business coach, and I'm on an absolute mission to help you find your purpose in life, to help you love what you do for work every single day, to help you be the rock star that you are meant to be, to make more money than you ever thought was possible, and to have more time freedom so you can actually enjoy the life that you're living. I'm here to help you set your life on fire. Our first speaker is a powerhouse. And so what's exciting about having him here is I've known Tai since 2010, right when I first got in the business. You guys heard my story. I got into Facebook marketing advertising. And I ended up being able to speak at this event called Magic Bullet. And so I was there. I ended up meeting Tai and Maya. We became friends. And this is the kind of guy that Tai is. I'm doing a mastermind, and he's like, yeah, man, you can do it at my house. My house in West Hollywood. And he opened up his house to me and to our fire starters, and it was like 40 people. And he never asked for anything. I mean, nothing. And he opened up his house, he had food there, and I was like, dude, how do I repay you, And so he's just been nothing but a great friend ever since I've known him. He's never asked for anything. He's always just asked to give and open up his house, open up his contacts to me. So I'm very grateful to have him here, to have him as a friend. And I think a couple things you should know about Tai is that he's an investor or a partner or an advisor to over 20 companies. And these 20 companies are all doing over 7 figures, which means over $1 million a year. He has a lot of wisdom from that. He's got one of the biggest audiences out of anyone that I've ever witnessed or been a part of or friends with. So over 1.4 million people on his email list in 40 countries, and they're subscribed to his daily book updates, his daily summaries. The guy reads a book a day. He's one of the brightest, highest level thinkers I know. Super fun to hang out with. You gotta stand to your feet and welcome my main man, Tai Lopez. Give him a big welcome.
Hey, welcome to the good life. When it's a sale, don't even get pulled over in they new V. The good life.
Oh, man.
Let's go on a living spree. They say the best things in life are free. The good life. It feel like Atlanta. It feel like LA. It feel like Miami. It feel like NY. Summertime shy.
All right. Welcome, everybody. Thank you. I made it.
Where's the Lambo?
I brought the Ferrari, not the Lambo. So, how was the event? It looks good. I just got here. I woke up sick, so if I sound a little stuffy, you know what's up. I was doing my Snapchat. Who here is doing Snapchat for their business? Anybody? Gauging. Any DJ Khaled's in here? Oh. Major key. I thought I would talk about today motivation, procrastination, new 2016 change. So one of my favorite quotes is, the chains of habit are too weak to be felt until they're too strong to be broken. So anybody heard that before? Raise your hand if you heard that. Warren Buffett says it. I'm not sure who originally came up with it, but the chains of habit are too weak to be felt till they're too strong to be broken. So we got all kinds of ages here, levels of entrepreneurs, and life really, I've evolved or tried to evolve through different phases of being an entrepreneur, whether it be, I started when I was 19 years old, Joel Salatin, and I was on his farm, and I said, Joel, there's this guy that has a ranch next to you, and Joel said, and I said, we could rent, he said he'd give us the land for free to use, and Joel said, no, we're too busy here on his farm, 500-acre farm. I said, well, I'll take care of it. And He said, well, you're busy here working from 5 in the morning to 5 at night on this farm. And I said, yeah, but I'll get a little headlamp. You know those little headlamp things you see people? And I'll do all my work on the farm, then I'll drive over to this other farm. It was actually about 45 minutes away. I'll drive over and take care of that farm. And so I did that for 9 months, and then we sold the cows that we raised. And so my first business, I made $12,000 in 9 months. So made about, when you do the hourly, I didn't do very well. But what it was doing was reinforcing a habit or a pattern that when you go out and do something, it succeeds. And so that's what I was saying, the chains of habit. A lot of people, for varying reasons, as entrepreneurs, they fail a lot at the beginning, which starts to create habits of the mind, patterns of the mind, expectations of the mind, and then they become like chains that are too hard to break. So some of you are young enough that you don't have any bad habits, or you don't have a ton. Most people, if you're over, is anyone under 18 here? No, okay. One, not many. But so most everybody here is old enough that you've already got ingrained patterns. So the question becomes, what are the patterns you're gonna need to do bigger things, whatever that might be? For some of you, it's trying to become a millionaire. For others of you, it's just financial well-being, quitting a job that you hate. For some of you, it's a big charity thing you're gonna change the world with. It basically comes down to habits of the mind. Because for the most part now, everybody has relatively similar potential. You know, racially, ethnic, gender-wise, location. There still is varying forms of discrimination and sexism. And if you live in Bangladesh right now, it's a heck of a lot harder than it is for you guys to make money. But for the most part, what will differentiate the people in this room, if I come back 1 year from now and you wrote down where you're at today versus where you'll be at 1 year from now, it will come down to what habits you formed or just, reconstructed this year, 2016. We don't happen to have a whiteboard, right? That's okay. I don't need one. So the biggest habit, I'm going to talk about 3 main habits that I'm focused on in my life continually, because it's kind of like erosion or entropy. It's always getting worse. So you have to put energy into it. It's kind of like your house. You got to always paint the house. Every few years, you got to paint the house. Every 5-10 years, you got to change the roof, period, for the next 100 years while you live in that house. So I'm going to give you 3 that I think are important for you to walk away from today. The first one is probably the most important. That's why I'll put it first. It's what motivates you. Now, you hear a lot about this. There's books like The Purpose-Driven Life, and yesterday, Tony Horton. You guys know who Tony Horton is? You ever heard of P90X? So he's probably the most famous personal trainer in the world because he sold 8 million copies of P90X. It's not bad. And they do $1 billion a year with their Beachbody, Shakeology, and all this. So he came to my place to train me in the morning, and we were talking. It's amazing. That dude's 57, and he's a machine. He did, I don't know if you ever done push-ups on like little medicine balls, like little plyo balls. He can put 4 balls, so each foot's on it, balance, and he can do 77 push-ups straight at 57. So he's a good guy for me to ask questions. And I said to him at the end, I said, what's the best piece of advice you have for me and for anybody? And he basically said, it's really dialing down the exact purpose. But I'm going to throw an angle you haven't heard before. Who here has heard about figuring out your purpose and all that? Okay. I think that's good, but I don't think it's the best way to think about it. Not to be rude to those people that talk about that. They have a good point. But motivation is different than purpose. I'll give you an example. So if I say my purpose is to get 1 million kids in the ghetto reading books. I do a lot of stuff with reading. That's kind of one of my things. That's a purpose. So I like to think of purpose as vision. But vision is relatively pointless because I've never met a person successful or or unsuccessful, who doesn't have a vision. Take your friend who never does anything, the laziest friend you have. If you sit down with them and you go, what would you like to accomplish in life? They'll tell you, they'll talk for it. Just ask people what they'll do if they win the lottery. What's it at now? $1.2 billion. I read that if you bought 1,800 tickets a week since the time of Christ, you still today would not have good odds that you would win. So 2000, that was some professor at USC put that out. So everybody has a vision for what they would do if they won the lottery, but not everybody has the motivation to get there. So I think of a GPS in my car. I think of your purpose as the end goal that you put in your maps. So you say, I'm going to the Grove in LA. So you punch in Grove. That's great. But it's pointless when there's no fuel in the car. Then it's just a dream. So the question becomes, what is the fuel that motivates and drives you? And this is when I talk about this, it becomes an uncharted, nobody knows what the heck they're talking about. Smart, dumb, professors. It's very complex for varying reasons. Some of it goes against social norms. You'll see in a second when I start explaining it. Some of it is because, what did Jack Nicholson say in that one thing? You can't, oh, that's cool, yeah. You can't handle the truth, right? So I think some of it is the truth is painful. They call that pain-avoiding delusion, Charlie Munger's 25 cognitive biases. That's one of them. Okay, will you guys be able to see this? Because will it pop on there? Because I don't know if they'll be able to see. If not, I won't use it. I don't even want to be left out. I don't need it. Okay, we're good. We'll just keep it up here. What motivates you? What is the actual fuel? Let me just take a survey. There's no wrong answer. I won't nail you and be like, wrong, or I won't embarrass you. And anyone, what motivates you? Anybody? No? Role model for kids. Okay. All right. Serving, okay. Free time. Cool. Okay, there's a 3 kind of a sample. Think of it this way. If you guys have, I don't know if you have pen and paper, but if you do, divide the sheet in half. Make a list, like a pros and cons list, but we're not going to do pros and cons. On the left-hand side, put selfish motivations, and on the right-hand side, put unselfish motivations. Now, for any of you that are really into evolutionary psychology and stuff, you could argue all things that humans do are selfish, including jumping in front of a car for your kids, but we won't get that nuanced with it. We won't get that. Selfish, unselfish. What I want everybody here to do, let's think about the left-hand column, which is the selfish side. Capitalism is a very complicated subject. I don't know if it's the best thing. It's full of flaws, but so far, this is what we got right now in the world. And other attempts at non-selfish approaches like pure communism hasn't worked that well. I lived with the Amish for 2.5 years, and they're a little more socialistic, but they're actually very capitalistic too. So they have what I call conscious capitalism, which I think the world is slowly evolving into, where you're capitalistic, yet you're willing to help out your neighbor. One of the greatest stories, before I went to the Amish, I was reading a book because I had met some Amish people, and I was like, these people are interesting. And I thought, I got to research them. So there's this book called Amish Society by this Yale professor, Hostetler. And I read it, and he tells this story that there was this family who had a dairy farm. They weren't Amish, just regular Americans. And if you know anything about dairy cows, if you don't milk them every day, they stop giving milk. So they had 100 cows, which is 2 people can't milk 100 cows. So they had machines to milk 100 cows. And they woke up in the morning, and their whole barn had burned down. And they had taken out a loan for this farm and all the cows and all the equipment, and now they were going to go bankrupt because those 100 cows, if you didn't milk the cows within 2 or 3 days, they would start drying up and wouldn't get milk, and you'd be out of business because you're selling milk. So this husband and wife, and kid, they just basically sat on the doorstep of their house and just started crying because there's nothing. And then all of a sudden they said, this is in Pennsylvania, they see there's rolling hills. If you've ever been to Lancaster or Pennsylvania, they hear clippity, 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 clop. And they look, and there's just a horse and buggy with a young boy in it coming. And he comes over, and he said, My dad said we should take 2 of your cows back home and we'll milk it by hand for you. So they said, oh, thank you. And they gave the 2 cows. They tied them behind this one boy, like a 12-year-old boy, back over the hill. Am I doing that? I won't reach that way. And then they said, oh, we still got 98 cows. And slowly, clippity-clop, all day, neighbors came, took all the cows, milked them for free, and then brought them back once they had rebuilt the barn in a month. So that's conscious capitalism. The Amish had their own farm. They were making their own money. They had to provide for themselves, selfishly, you could say. But yet, when the time was a need be, they would reach out. And one of the guy went back and tried to pay the Amish, and Amish said, this is what Jesus said we're supposed to do, so you don't have to pay us anything. Now, you don't have to be religious to like that story. It's a good story. So when you look at your list of the selfish and unselfish, it's okay to have both. The world won't function. And I'm at the point now, if there's somebody who's like, hey man, I'll come work with you for free. I'm like, nope, I want to pay you. Because people are selfishly motivated. And so the sooner you come to grips with that, the sooner you'll be able to really fuel yourself out of the bad habits and the chains. Because does anybody here feel like they have issues of procrastination or habits of overanalysis, fear, maybe going to the negative? Okay, somebody said no. You're good. From Brazil, I remember you. So here's 4 things you can write in the selfish column there on the left. Just put 4 M's, M. The first one is material things. And I always put a slash. So material / money. Some of you got to come to grips, no matter what society says, that you are material motivated. It's okay. As long as only about 25% of the world is greedy, it'll be okay. Adam Carolla, I was on Adam Carolla's show. He has a hilarious thing. He goes, people always talk about greedy pharmaceutical companies. He's like, I want them greedy. I want whoever finds a cure for HIV to make $10 billion, just cash, because then every kid around, you know why people want to play pro basketball? It's for the fame, it's also for the money. You got kids in the ghetto go, that guy's got a Bentley and this and that, so it drives them to play basketball every day. And so his point, I don't know if it's true, is it's okay for there to be some greed. So who here would say, honestly, it might be the first time you're willing to say this publicly, who thinks, and I'm going to give you a test at the end of these 4. I don't know if I'll get through all 3 here because of time, but I'll give you a test how you can accurately assess which one you are by using your subconscious. But consciously, who thinks that's your one? 25% of the room should raise their hand. Who's just motivated by cool money stuff? Badass house, really nice clothes, looking in the bank account and be like, oh yeah, right? Wait, raise a hand high. I want to see. Okay, that's about 25%. The second one is mating. So mating / you could say sexuality, but mating is a better term. And by mating, I mean, and this applies for men and women. Hugh Hefner, which do you think his 4 was? Okay? He built Playboy. He didn't become the richest man in the world. I saw the Playboy mansions for sale for $200 million. If any of you materially motivated people have some money, you want to buy a mansion for $200 million. But he was driven by mating. Now, for those of you, most people in this room aren't like Hugh Hefner or don't want to be like Hugh Hefner, but you were saying about, your family. Mating is also marriage and things like that, and having that bond of family. So it's like a social connection, usually romantically. We could also call it mating / romance. So who here, because remember, 50% of marriages, number one cause of marriage divorce are these 4 M's not being in place. Specifically, money is a big one. But who here is basically driven by wanting to be able to solidify that romantic part of their life? The lovers in the room. 1, okay. We have 1 lover. Should be 20. Who here are primarily driven by that? Wait till I do this little test at the end. You'll see it's cool. I've never shared this test publicly, so you guys will be the first ones to come up with it. Okay, to hear it. The third one is mastery / status. Who just liked always to be the best at stuff? Okay, hands went up real quick on that. Because those people were like, I want you to know I had the status of my first hand raised here. Mastery status. This one, a lot more people. And the fourth one is momentum/movement. So you got to keep moving. You don't care if you have Johnny Carson, by the way, was this fourth one. I read there's a cool biography by his lawyer. It's fascinating. Johnny Carson, the reason I know he wasn't motivated by money is he never kept track of his money. All he wanted was always enough money that he could do whatever he wanted. So if he's like, I want to go to New York, I need a place there. And his lawyer took care of it and always made sure there was money. He had a contract back in the late 60s. The U.S. tax rate went up to 95%. People don't realize that. So your last dollars, if you're making a lot of money, you're paying 95% in tax. So he deferred a $100 million contract because he didn't really care. He's like, give me the money in 10 years. He just wanted this would be the freedom one, by the way. Momentum. Who here is primarily driven by that? Okay, this one seems to get more with entrepreneurs. So, number them, those four. Put four. Number one is the first one. Just order the four M's. 1, 2, 3, 4. So yours might look. We got the top. We have material money things. Second, we have mating/romance. Third, we have mastery/status. Fourth, we have momentum/movement. So which one's your number 1, 2, 3, 4? If you can just write those down real quick. Now, I'm going to do a test. Here's how you actually know. Because I realized this a long time ago that these are the four. I just didn't know how to. So I knew where the fuel was. I knew where the gas station was. These four M's, the acknowledgement of them is like you going, there's a gas station down the street. But it doesn't matter if the gas doesn't get into your car. So that's the hard part. It's very hard. I would say I meet once a year, I meet somebody that really knows what motivates them. And here's the best way you'll know. If you tap dance out of bed every day, then you know what motivates you. Warren Buffett says, I'm 85 every day, I tap dance out of bed. Joel Salatin, he was actually out, my first mentor. He spoke at my conference. Nick was nice enough to speak there too. Gave a great talk. And Joel was at my house, and I said, Joel, I don't ever remember you procrastinating. Do you procrastinate? He's like, yeah, I kind of struggle with it. I'm like, I don't think you do. I think you're being humble. He wrote 12 books. He wakes up every day at exactly 5 in the morning, writes from 5 to 5:45, right? And he just put out, I think, 14 books. He's not a procrastinator. And I realize he knows exactly where the fuel is and how to get it into his car. And so most of those chains of bad habits kind of fall away. And they do it on their own. And the opposite of doing this is going to a lot of therapy or beating yourself up and going, why do I procrastinate? Kids that play video games, you take I don't know what you guys were like when you were 17, but let's say your mom was like, why are you always playing video games? Well, I went to this thing and Megan Fox was there. When you're a 17-year-old boy, you're pretty much driven by the second of the M's, right? Mating, women. So if I've seen this before, if someone like Megan Fox walks in the every dude's energy level just like there's nobody playing video games anymore. People are lifting weights in the corner. They're doing all kinds of stuff. They actually did a study that if men have a pretty girl sit on their chest while they're doing bench press, that a man, especially a girl that doesn't necessarily like him yet, so he's trying to prove, he'll lift 30% more instantly. Testosterone. But see, you know your fuel then, okay? Now, for most of us, that's not the most applicable thing. You could, if you're having a hard time getting through your business stuff, guys, I guess you could get a girl to sit on your shoulders while you do the emails or something. But I think we rarely come to grips with these four. And here's how I think you can really know which one is your number one. Which of these four are you the most competitive on? So, I used to think, and a lot of people think money and material is mine because I got commercials with Lamborghinis, but I always was like, I don't think it is. I lived 10 years on a farm. I lived 2.5 years with no electricity and horses. I lived 6 years with no running water. So if I was that materialistic, and this was when I was an adult, so I don't think it's it. And now, here's how you know. When I see somebody richer than me, I'm never envious. Envy will tell you which of these four is yours. So instead of envy being something you try to get rid of, envy is the flashlight that illuminates your inner being. Okay, you're the first I use this internally. I don't always share all my tricks, but this is one of my tricks. It's a game changer one. So who here, when they see somebody with more money, better ass car, cooler house, feels a little envy? Anybody, raise your hand. Feel envy. Yeah, be honest. Trust me. Be honest. The quicker you get the fuel inside you, all kinds of good stuff going to happen. Okay, who here, when they see a guy or a girl with a better relationship, whether it be a more beautiful person or more, a better family, who here feels a little envious? I know some women got to raise their hand, because I know how women are when they see another girl having, look at them, always posting kissing pictures on their Facebook. Like, that's probably your motivator. Women, by the way, that second one is a big one for women. Women tend, I'm not going to get into this subject because it's if I want to get tomatoes thrown at me, this is a good way to do it. But part of the reason that what's the reason women don't make as much as men? Part of it is societal discrimination, and part of it is women are a little more enlightened and they don't just care about having the biggest yacht. The richest man, Larry Ellison is competing with what's his name on they add 2 feet to their yacht. Women don't do that as much. That's why I say they're more enlightened. They're like, I got enough. But women are competitive about making sure their kids have a good upbringing. Men in most mammal species don't stick around, just so you know. Women stick around for their kids. By the way, if you want to know the real science, it's whatever gender has internal gestation that cares about the kids the most. So in certain species of, what do they call? Seahorses, where the men gestate, then the women fight over the men, and the women mate with the men and then leave, and they're deadbeat seahorse females or whatever, right? Seahorse moms or something. So who, on this third one, who sees, and this is one, status. When you see somebody, you're at a house party, and someone else walks in, and they start stealing the spotlight. Everybody starts laughing at their jokes. You were talking, and all of a sudden everyone's like, whoop. Okay, we got the first honest person. Who here has a little bit of envy over status? Okay, that's probably your primary motivator. So what you're going to do is you're going to flip these things, each of these, and begin to use them positively. And the last one is when you see somebody who has more freedom. Like, I always say, money's not money, it's options. So when you see somebody, Tony Horton told me a great thing. He said, Ty, people get mad at me. I said, why? He said, this winter I went on 3 hella skiing trips. And Beachbody was like, we need to film a new P90X4 and this, and don't you want to make an extra $50 million or whatever the number is? And he's like, nope, I want to ski. So if you hear that story and you're like, what the heck's wrong with my life that I can't be like that guy, that's your primary one. Now, the way you use these, I've got 23 seconds. The way you use these, I can go real quick, try to finish it up. Can I go a couple minutes over? Or No, I was trying to ask Nick because I don't want to be rude to the next speaker. All right, I'll wait. I'll wait for the Apollo. It was the Sandman, the cane to pull me off. So what I try to do is identify which of the 4 are my dominant ones and then really allow myself to be selfish in that one area. And this is everything opposite that we've grown up with social controls. As long as you do this with relative common sense and not pure douchebaggery, okay? And that's different for different people. So let's say your thing is status. You see other people with status and you're like, oh, that'd be cool to walk in the room and everybody recognizes me and stuff like that. Well, then allow yourself to go there. When you wake up in the morning, be like, I'm going to do X, Y, Z because one day people are going to know my name. And I don't know if my primary driver is status, but as I look through my life, there's been times when there's absolute signs that it was. For example, when I came back from the farm, back to the modern world from the Amish, I went to a nightclub in Raleigh, North Carolina. I wish I had footage of this. It would be very funny because I went to a nightclub. It was the top night. Somebody told me, best nightclub was this place called The Office. So I knew nothing about nightclubs. I'd been with the Amish, okay? There are no nightclubs there. And I just went alone, a dude, just rolling up to a nightclub alone. If you know anything about nightclubs, a prestigious one, they're not going to let you in. So I go there, and I'm kind of like, okay. And there's ropes, and they're letting all these other people in, and I'm like, okay, can I go in? And the dude just like, he just laughed. He didn't even say anything. He was like, bah, and I remember thinking, oh, one day I'm going to own all these clubs. And I ended up basically running that city's nightlife at one level. So that's what I'm saying. That was status. I wasn't like, ooh, I wonder how much money they're making at this place. Mine was like, I didn't like to be disrespected. And I've seen that over and over in my life. So now I just came to grips with it. Some people aren't going to like you. They're going to be like, look at that person. You know, they care about status. Everything you hear quotes all the time. Do not, we shouldn't, doesn't matter who you are, and da-da-da. A lot of those quotes aren't very accurate. Status is important, and status is very, very powerful. And if you use it for good, it's kind of like Bill Gates. He's clearly driven by money. You do not become the 17-time richest man in the world without being hyper-competitive. Paul Allen, his business partner, said the two most competitive people I've met in my life are Michael Jordan and Bill Gates. And Bill Gates, you better believe he cares about money, but yet he's turned and harnessed that into the charity that's in some ways maybe done more good than all governmental organizations for the last 100 years. So that's why I say he's been able to pull it off. And if each of you could find your version of that. For some of you, it's like you pulled up in a car and everybody laughed at you, and and you're like, one day I'm gonna pull up in a nice car. When I get out of this car, people are gonna look at me and be like, Bob's here, Susie's here. And you don't have to feel guilty for it. That's my main thing. As long, and I won't have time to go through this, but as long as you start feeling, so this is the selfish side we started talking about. As long as you start filling up the unselfish side, it will offset the negative connotations that society has, okay, with whatever drives you. For some of you guys, I'll give you a perfect practical example of this. I know a dude who always eats horribly, is always overweight, and can't. Anybody ever struggled to go to the gym? The average person goes to the gym once for 1 month after they get a gym membership, 1 to 2 months. Okay, so we have a whole world where people have good intentions, but again, they don't know the fuel, and I'll tell you why. Society says, well, you should just go to the gym for yourself. Well, there's lots of dudes. Arnold Schwarzenegger drove himself by women. He was very mating oriented. And he knew when he took his shirt off that women paid attention. Now, we've grown up being told, oh, that's shallow. It's not really shallow. It's a sign of fitness and health. And Dr. Helen Fisher says of 100 mammals she's studied, there's not one species that the women prefer unhealthy males. None. So it's not just human society, it's all places. So I told my friend, we diagnose his problems. He always wakes up and eats junky food at like midnight. He's like, I have a little craving. I said, you need to put pictures on your fridge of the most beautiful women to you, whoever they are, and just be like, they'll never date you if you eat whatever you're about to eat. And that's a little mind trick. Some people like that, some people don't like that, but it works. Mark Cuban told me, I shot a special. He came, we shot for 5 hours at my place, and he said, I said, how did you, I see that. Yeah, I'll come off. So this says Tai. This is the Apollo music. Hint, hint. No, you need the hook. Mark Cuban, just to wrap up, I said, how did you, this is 2 indicators. And I don't even think he knows this about himself. I mean, he does, but I'm narrowing it down for you and making it simple. He said, when he was broke, he used to drive around, I think, Dallas, and look at other people with big mansions and go, I'm going to be like that. I'm going to have one. So he was clearly driven by material things, and he came to grips with it. As opposed to, I had a friend, and she was reading some Eastern philosophy, and I said, that's good. Eastern philosophy is good. Don't go too far with it, because you're going to end up with no motivation. I've been to India before. India is an interesting country. Not everything's good about Eastern philosophy. Western philosophy has some merit too, You try to merge the best of both. He then told me, and this is my last story here before I get ejected through the ceiling. He said, I made the mistake of bringing up Donald Trump to him. Apparently, him and Donald Trump do not like each other for a decade. They had some feud about, I don't know where it started. It's like Hatfields and McCoy. It's the billionaire Hatfield and McCoy. And he said he started a show that was going to compete against The Apprentice, Donald Trump show. And his show was called The Benefactor. And it failed. The ratings never were very high. And Donald Trump sent him a letter. And the letter said, oh, how's that show of yours going? It was one of these like taunting letters, handwritten letter. And I said, what'd you do with that letter? Now, what people would tell you is, ignore it. Society would say, don't worry what other people think of you. Just burn it, or karma, he'll get his. No, he said, I have two things in my office every day when I walk in. I have my NBA championship for the Dallas Mavericks, when I won that, and I have Donald Trump's letter framed. He said, every day I woke up, and when I didn't feel like working and the chains of habit of procrastination were strong, I looked up at that letter and was like, I don't like being disrespected. That's mastery and status. Those are the two things that seem to drive Mark Cuban. Money he drove around, and by doing that, he's a force for good now. Shark Tank is a show that's influenced more young people to be interested in entrepreneurialism. So that's his unselfish. He doesn't need to do that. He made $3 billion. But he's harnessing that. And he told me, I wrote a letter back to Donald Trump. And I said, this Shark Tank show we have seems to be going pretty good. How's your Apprentice ratings going? Because I was in Apprentices diving. He said he never wrote me back. All right, so thank you so much. And, let me Snapchat.
Just give another hand for Ty. Snap it up.
Snapchat.
Yeah.
All right, so there you have it. That was just a fun session with Tai Lopez at our big Ignite Your Movement event. And so here's what I would encourage you to do next, is that right now, if you haven't subscribed to our YouTube channel, for sure, hit the subscribe button, because we're about to drop amazing content here on the YouTube channel. However, if maybe you're listening to this on our iTunes, or maybe watching it on our podcast, be sure to subscribe to that, write us a review. So I would love for you to get involved, comment, interact, just say hello. And we have so much amazing content that's going to be coming to you. So keep your eyes peeled on your email inbox, and get ready to rock, because we've got so much more goodness coming straight to you. So look forward to catching up with you soon. See ya.
I'm here to help you set your life on fire.